The president of Ukraine is acting recklessly. And if he doesn't change, we're going to enter into a world war. There's no need to worry, however, because we know how it all ends. All right, folks, let's get into this one. I have to tell you, this is another crazy article. And look, every time I read this, I can't help but to laugh because the sheer insanity behind the things that I'm reading. Now, I have told you this before, that I have a very difficult time respecting the president of Ukraine because I actually believe that he continues to act with reckless abandonment. I don't think that he is concerned about his people. I think that he lacks perspective with respect to how it affects everything that is around him. I think that had he done what he's going to be forced into doing in the first place, that there would literally be another million Ukrainians that would be alive right now. And I am not an apologist for President Putin. I am not standing up for him. I'm not saying he's a good guy. But what I am saying, folks, is that this whole thing didn't come out of the blue for Putin. Putin was literally backed into a corner, and there's a lot behind the story related to this very issue. So let's get into the article. I'll talk about this a little bit. And folks, things are not looking good right now for Zelensky. He knows it. He's in a really bad place. He disabled his own elections. It's a mess. It's just a total mess, and there's a lot to talk about how he's handling this, but let's get into the title of the article, and yes, of course, it's going to involve NATO. This is so ridiculous. Here's the title: Ukraine asks NATO for membership invite next week, letter shows. This is crazy. Here we go. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sabiha has urged his NATO counterparts to issue an invitation to Kyiv at a meeting in Brussels next week to join the Western Military Alliance, according to the text of a letter seen by Reuters on Friday. This is nuts. This is nuts. Hey, invite us to come in so that we could go start World War III. It's just crazy. I'll get into that in a minute. The letter reflects Ukraine's renewed push to secure an invitation to join NATO, which is part of a, quote, victory plan. Yeah, how's it working out for you, right? Outlined last month by President Vladimir Zelensky to end the war triggered by Russia's 2022 invasion. By the way, the war triggered by Russia's 2022 invasion is already a problem for me. Okay, I already have a problem with that statement because this war was actually triggered by the constant rhetoric being voiced by not only American leaders, but by other people surrounding American interests and actually, I'm not even going to call it American interests. Let's just say American clandestine operations in Ukraine to want to expand NATO and create this proxy war between America and Russia. That's exactly what this nonsense is. And I, by no stretch of the imagination, am pro-Russia. I'm pro-America and I'm pro-God first. And this nonsense is absolutely crazy. But if you know Bible prophecy, and you know what Ezekiel 38 says, then you know it's not going to be a winning war with Russia. There's no way. Let's just look at Russia's history. No way you're going to win. There's no way. But anyway, let's continue on. It says, Zelensky told UK-based Sky News that offering Ukraine NATO membership while allowing Russia to keep for the moment territory it had captured could be a solution to end the hot stage of the 33-month-old war. Yeah, you're the guy, Zelensky, that's going to tell us how to end this war. You're the guy that's going to actually show us the better way through some sort of diplomatic strong arm. Really, Zelensky? How's it been working out for you? It's not working out. You know Trump is coming, which is why you're trying to do as much as you could possibly do to get in NATO before Trump comes. And look, there's so much to say about this. It's absolutely crazy. Let's go on with the article. It says, Ukraine says it accepts that it cannot join the alliance until the war is over, but extending an invitation now would show Russian President Vladimir Putin that he could not achieve one of his main goals, preventing Kyiv from becoming a NATO member. Let's get this straight, Zelensky. Russia's main goal is not to prevent Ukraine from entering NATO. Russia's main goal is to maintain the security of its alliance, and not only to maintain security of the Russian alliance, it is also to keep NATO from expanding. They have tolerated NATO expanding against the promises and the guarantees made to them, not only verbally, but also in writing. And this is absolutely crazy. All right, let's continue on with the article here, but look at this quote. This quote is so ridiculous. This is the representative of Zelensky saying this. This is his quote. The invitation should not be seen as an escalation. In whose world? In whose world does the invitation not seem as an escalation? Folks, let me just stop for 1 second, okay? Let me describe to you why it would absolutely be seen as an escalation. Because when Russia made the agreement to dismantle the USSR, it was predicated upon security guarantees that were made towards Russia that they would not expand NATO. The expansion of NATO would be a threat to Russia's sovereignty and their security, and they all agreed that that would be the case. The diplomats got together, they made the agreement. We know for a fact that Gorbachev was given the guarantee by Bush. It was a promise that was made. And then almost instantly, when the USSR was dismantled, when the wall came down, with all that stuff happened, they almost instantly started the process of aggressively expanding NATO. Okay, so to tell me that this would not be an escalation is cuckoo. All right? It's literally like, forgive me for saying this, you are crazy. There's no world where this is not an escalation. Look at what his quote continues to be. By the way, this is gaslighting in its finest. This is literal insanity. Watch this. On the contrary, with a clear understanding that Ukraine's membership in NATO is inevitable, Russia will lose one of its main arguments for continuing this unjustified war. What? Like, whose rear end did you pull that out of? Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound vulgar or crazy, but where in the world are you getting these lies from? Do you think you're talking to stupid people? Do you think your gaslighting is going to be believed by these people? Come on. Your dedication, Zelensky, is to war. To me, this just doesn't even make sense. And the United States of America needs to stop this enabling nonsense. I mean, look, as it is, Biden may have made one of the most insane decisions that he's ever made as a commander-in-chief, besides, letting his own son go. Let me leave that whole thing alone. But what he did in this particular situation, yes, he really did pardon Hunter, for those of you that didn't hear the news. But what he did in this situation was he basically told Zelensky, go ahead and use our weapons against Russia in a very unmitigated context. You're no longer being held back. Go ahead. Let the games begin. It's just nuts. If President Trump was not coming into office, we would probably already be at full-scale world war. It's just crazy. Unjustified war. Here's the next quote. I urge you to endorse the decision to invite Ukraine to join the alliance as one of the outcomes of the NATO foreign ministerial meeting on 3-4 December 2024. No way. No way. Now, I know that this meeting has already happened, but I'm just telling you this right now. It's an absolutely crazy, insane thing to do. Listen to this paragraph, folks. And this really sheds light on it all. Talk about the crazy manipulation. Zelensky told Sky News an invitation had to be officially extended to the entire country as Ukraine had no legal right to recognize any of its territory as Russian. NATO membership could then initially apply to only the part of Ukraine that Kiev controls. Okay, first of all, this whole idea of they could initially apply their rules to the part that only Kiev controls is absurd. If NATO makes a declaration in inviting the whole country, literally all of the country, then it falls all under Article 5. So this is Zelensky thinking that everybody is stupid and that they're all going to jump in. This is literally them basically declaring war against Russia, like literally saying every single member of this alliance officially declares war against Russia, because you're saying now that Russia does not have right to Crimea. Russia, none of it belongs to Russia, that none of this stuff is legitimate. And in reality, the legitimacy conversation is one that goes far past the conversation that's been had over the last few years. I'm sorry, but that is true. Some people might not want to hear it, but that really is true. Look at the quote. This is Zelensky. It's just crazy. No one has offered us to be in NATO for one part or another part of Ukraine. The fact is, it is a solution to stop the hot stage of war because we can just give NATO membership to the part of Ukraine that is under our control. No, we can't. Again, he's making this up. It doesn't work that way. You either invite all of Ukraine into NATO or you declare that certain portions of Ukraine belong to Russia and you invite those portions into NATO. And even doing that would not be acceptable to Russia for obvious reasons. They're concerned about their security. That's how crazy this stuff is, folks. I'm telling you, this is literally insane. This is just absolutely ridiculous. Look what it goes on to say, but the invitation must be given to Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. That's what we need to do fast, and then Ukraine can get back the other part of its territory diplomatically. Yeah, right. Good luck. Good luck. Your diplomacy has absolutely not worked. Look what the article goes on to say. NATO diplomats say there is no consensus among alliance members to invite Ukraine at this stage. Any such decision would require the consent of all NATO's 32 member countries. Thank God that there's no way you will get consensus between all NATO 32 countries. No way. Even the ones that seem to be the most pro-Ukrainian will not do it because they do not want to engage in war with Russia, especially many of the Western European countries. They do not want to do it. NATO or not, I'm telling you, it's absolutely crazy. NATO has declared that Ukraine will join the alliance and that it is on an irreversible path to membership, but it has not issued a formal invitation or set out a timeline. And I would highly advise that NATO changes its rhetoric regarding that because, quite frankly, all of this is a move for corruption. That's all this is. Let's go on with the article. Olga Stefanishyna, Ukraine's deputy prime minister in charge of NATO affairs, said Kyiv understood that the consensus for an invitation to join NATO is not there. That's his quote. But the letter was meant to send a strong political signal. Here's a quote. We have sent a message to the allies that invitation is not off the table, regardless of different manipulations and speculations around that. It's just so ridiculous. In his letter, Sabiha argued an invitation would be the right response to, quote, Russia's constant escalation of war it has unleashed, the latest demonstration of which is the involvement of tens of thousands of North Korean troops and the use of Ukraine as a testing ground for new weapons. Okay, first and foremost, Russia would have not done any of that had Ukraine not sought to escalate it using American weapons. Okay, let's just be real about this. Russia is doing everything that it can to be able to protect itself, and I'm not defending Russia. I'm just being honest about the situation. That's what I'm doing. I'm being honest about the situation. In recent days, however, diplomats have said they do not see any changes of stance among NATO countries, particularly as they await the Ukraine policy of the United States, the alliance's dominant power under the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump. And I can tell you what President-elect Donald Trump is going to do. President-elect Donald Trump is not going to allow for the expansion of NATO. As a matter of fact, I'm going to venture to say that President Trump is going to threaten NATO and make them pay their own dues and take their own part so they won't be as reckless with the stance that they've been taking with respect to everything that's happening in Ukraine. Folks, let me just tell you this. The members of NATO that are all about bringing Ukraine in are also the same members that are not putting out the same level of money, the same level of troops, effort, and energy as the United States is. We continue to be NATO's greatest contributor. We continue to be the nation that continues to have the greatest influence in NATO, which is precisely why NATO has expanded at the furious rate that it has. And the reckless behavior of President Biden and the absolutely insane behavior of Vice President, whatever her name is, Kamala, whatever, has been the greatest contributory variable to the destabilization of the region. What they've done has been absolutely crazy. But folks, we don't have to worry about this because we know how the world will eventually end. We don't know how far away we are from that. It could be, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 100 years. We know how God is going to destroy the world. So we don't ever have to worry about, nuclear this or nuclear that. But the one thing that I can tell you is that nuclear weapons are very real, and there is grave potential for those things to be used in a context that could literally devastate the existence of humanity. And when I talk about this stuff, I bring it from the perspective of completely knowing where God is going to end up taking this. Folks, we know that the church will be raptured, and around the same time that the church is raptured is probably when we're going to see Ezekiel 38 take place. That's when all of these nations are going to come down and attack Israel. We know what the position of these nations will be at the time that they attack Israel. We know where Israel is going to be at the time that all of this happens. And all of those things tell us that Ukraine is not a major player in any of this. All of those things tell us that the United States of America isn't even a major player in any of this. All of these things tell us that these nations that constantly are providing so much of the effort that's destabilizing the region are really going to be nothing players. So my thought process is, why are we putting the lives of our children at stake? Why are we sitting them down and literally making them pay with their blood? Why are we making them suffer as a result of all of the insanity that these people are continuing to play with? Look, Zelensky is not even remotely qualified to stand on behalf of his country because he clearly has demonstrated his lack of care for his country. He could have very easily stood up and not allowed this nonsense to happen with Russia. This could have been a very easy process. It could have ended. It could have not even happened. Biden should not have done what he did. People like Lindsey Graham should have shut their mouths. All of these warmongers that continue to want to see this thing come out, these people who are lining their pockets with the money that's being produced from making all of these weapons and doing all of these things, they are making money off the death of the future. But if we know the word of God, we understand that it's a dying cause. We know that it's something that will absolutely never work. Now, where does the hope come in all of this? Really simple. The ultimate puppet master is the Lord. God is going to manipulate these situations in a way where his purposes will be accomplished. And if we want a great insurance policy, the greatest insurance policy out there, it's to put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. It's to say, Lord, I trust you for my salvation, I trust you for my life, and I trust you for my future. And ironically enough, all these people who say they're concerned about our future have no care for our future because they have no regard for their own. But the God of heaven cares about our future so much that he killed his son. He crucified his son. He allowed his son to die on the cross. And then he rose him from the dead after he judged him. Folks, that is the blessing and the benefit that we have obtained as a result of the work that God continues to do in our lives. I don't know about you. I'm not trusting these guys. I'm trusting God. And I know what God says about the future, and I'm putting my faith and my hope in him. In the meantime, I'm not going to hesitate to talk about this stuff. I'm not going to hesitate to stand up for righteousness and stand up for the truth. I care about my country. I care about these innocent people that are dying. I care about our children. I care about my children. I don't want my children dragged off into war. I know you don't want your children dragged off into war. We don't want our future generations to suffer because a bunch of people are playing some crazy, insane game of Risk. This is nuts. This has got to end. And what we need to do is seek God like we've never sought him before. We need to trust in him like we've never trusted him before. We need to walk with him like we've never walked with him before. And the most important thing that we need to do is we need to absolutely continue to hold fast to the word that he gives us. We have got to stay in a place where our worldview is molded and shaped by what we know in God's word. There's where we'll find our peace. There is where we will find our hope. There is where we will find everything that we need to carry on into a positive and powerful future. Because our future doesn't look bright, folks. Our future looks blissful. Our future is incredible. Christ could come back at any moment. Let's live like it. Let's fight the good fight. Let's do the things that God has called us to do. Because everything is worth it. God gave it to us. Let's be good stewards of it. We love you guys. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight.